Hey, what's up everybody? The Danimator here, and I'm going to show you guys how to do a fairly basic animation in Flash CS6. If you have Adobe Animate, which is pretty much a later version of this, then you should be able to follow along pretty well too. Things might just be laid out slightly differently. So first of all, I like animating in classic mode, so I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, and then Classic, which I already have it, so it's going to look the same. And then for my size over here, this is just the size of the stage, so anything in this green area, see I have the stage set to green, you can change your color if you want. It's right here, see that? I like green just because it's like, things stand out on it really well, so it's really easy to see what you're doing. But I like for the stage doing 1024 by 576, really good for widescreen format, and it's not as many pixels, so once you drop it into like, there's a program called Swivel that you're going to be rendering the video with later. Once you drop it to that, it'll upscale perfectly to 1920 by 1080 and it'll look fine. So anyways, so I already have a few layers. Let me delete these so it looks more like you're starting out. So go to new layer right here, and then we're gonna call this black outline. Ignore the layer above it right here. This is just one I already created. So basically the goal, and I like doing this just because it like defines more where your workspace is. I don't know how many other people do this. I'm self-taught, so I don't know, but this is how I do it. So make a square around your workspace, and I did that using this rectangle tool right here, and you just click and drag. And then go to the zoom function right here where it says 80%. I'm going to type in 60. I'm going to make another black outline around that, and then I'm going to go to the paint bucket tool right here and just fill it in like that. So that kind of like gives you a really defined kind of, or defined borders around where your animation is going to be. So it like, you know, I just like that because it's kind of confusing when you're animating the stage without that, because you don't know like what's going to be in the animation and what's not. And later on you're going to go to Control Test Movie and it'll show you like just the screen and literally the black outlines right outside of that. So hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, so we're going to first make a background for our character, and I'm going to actually be using Kirby today because he's really simple, just a simple character that's fast to draw. So I like kind of putting percentage here that's, yeah, just about ready to take up the whole size of the inside of this workspace here. But anyway, so I'm going to create another layer, drag this layer below black outline. I'm going to delete my original black outline later. I thought I was going to use it, but I'm not going to, so just ignore that. I'm going to lock my black outline layer, and that means I can't like erase it or anything, because we want that there the whole time, because you know, that's just something that's, it's not going to be animated or anything like that. So anyway, so layer 3, I'm going to call that background. And let's just create a simple background. So I'm going to go, once again, I went to the rectangle tool. You don't have to do it exactly like me. You can kind of draw whatever you want in here. But I'd keep it simple for now and kind of follow at least something similar to what I'm doing, just so you don't get too lost. But I'm going to draw a rectangle here. And I'm gonna raise it just a little bit, just for aesthetic purposes. Let's make like a little bit of grass. And just to tell you how I'm doing some of the stuff, because I know I'm going kind of fast. Basically, I use the pencil tool right here. The pencil tool makes like really clean, slim lines. You could also use the brush tool if you like kind of like, maybe a little bit of like a messier look. You can make it look clean also, but it's more of like a, you know, not as like defined edges. Anyways, there's some grass right there, and then that looks a little bit plain, so I'm just going to do like a little bit of shading. I don't want to make it too complicated for the purposes of this video, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and click on the layer again just so I know for sure I have it selected, and then I'm going to do that. And then if you see it filling in the whole thing, Flash can be really picky about like what it colors in, so just kind of make like a loop around it is what I like to do. So what's happening there is it's literally coloring in anything that's inside of like a defined circle. Another thing you're going to want to have on almost all the time is go to close large gaps. Because otherwise, if you have like a little tiny thing like this, Flash won't fill it in, like, it'll just... Well, it did it this time because there's nothing else here, but if you go to, like, let's say I just wanted to fill in that circle, it would, like, spill out, so, like, watch. So it's on close large gap, so it will fill it in. If I go to close small, then it'll fill in the whole thing. So you don't want that. So you're going to want it to fill in the entire thing. Hopefully that makes sense. Don't get too overwhelmed. If you have trouble following along, feel free to go back or ask me a question in the comments. Anyways, so there's our grass layer. I'm gonna call this grass, and then I think I misspelled that. It doesn't really matter that much. You guys get it, but okay. So I'm gonna go do another layer, and then I'll do sky. And I'm gonna put this layer behind this one. It's gonna be another background layer. So I'm gonna lock the grass layer so we don't modify it at all. And I'm gonna draw the sky right here. So I want the sky to be blue. Generic, right? I don't know why it picked gray instead. That was weird. Okay, so go up to your color palette tool right here, and right here you can make a gradient, which is like when one color kind of flows into another. You'll get it if you just follow what I'm doing. It'll kind of make sense. So go to linear gradient, and actually I'm going to do radial instead. It doesn't really matter too much, but I like doing one far side, like one blue color, the other far side kind of a similar, and then the middle maybe do like a light. That'll kind of look like a skyline right there. So now if I drag, that'll show up. Actually, you know what? That doesn't look as good as I thought. I actually am going to go to linear gradient. So yeah, that's actually what I meant to do. So sorry about that. But anyways, so I'm going to drag a rectangle, and you see anywhere I drag, it'll create that. So there is our background there. And then lastly, what I meant to say is that there's our sky background. And then I'm going to lock that. And the very last thing I'll do is add some simple clouds. So you can draw them however you want. It doesn't really matter. But you see, I'm drawing and they're disappearing. And that's because layer 5 right here is underneath these two layers. So I'm going to drag layer 5 above grass and sky. And draw some clouds. These are terrible clouds, but oh well. Oops. So yeah, you can so if you want to actually move one of these, I don't want them to be in the places they are. You can actually click, as long as this background's locked. Like, make sure if you click, otherwise, watch, if the sky background wasn't locked, I would try to click and drag over the cloud, but I click and drag and move that by accident. So you want that to be locked. Now it should work. So go back to your cloud layer, and then click outside to where these aren't selected, and then click and drag. It selects it. Now I'm going to go to the transform tool right here, and then if you hold shift while you transform, the object will stay like the same size. Otherwise you can like warp it. So you can do that if you want, but if you hold shift, it'll lock into the same kind of perspective, or not perspective, but the same sort of like dimensions that it was. So I'm going to do that with a couple of these here. Maybe I'll warp this one just a little bit for fun. Put that up there, and then I want a little bit more cloud, so I'm going to actually copy. So watch it. I selected this. I went to edit, copy, and edit, paste. Paste that down here. That looks a little bit too similar to the one right there, so I'm going to... You can actually hold down Control, and you can click on one of the corners and kind of like warp it, so it'll look a little bit different. And I'll put it off to the side. I'll do like just one more, and you can obviously get as creative as you want, but... And notice how that's above the grass layer. I'm going to put it one layer down, so it'll be in the background. And then I locked that also, so we'll just keep it simple, keep it like that for now. Anyways, let's add our character. This is where it gets a little bit more fun. So we're going to do Kirby, because he's simple. So I don't really know how to draw Kirby completely from memory, even though he's really simple. I could probably do a decent job, but just to make him more accurate, I'm going to go to File, Import to Stage. And then go ahead and download a picture of Kirby or whatever. That's not Kirby. Hold on. So I have him right here. Save. Downloads. I'll call him Kirby. I thought I did that earlier, but I guess not. File. Import to stage. We got... That's still not Kirby. File. Import to stage. I went ahead and just search for it down here because the new Windows search function is weird. So anyways. Okay, so we got Kirby here. Whoops. And I'm going to put Kirby up to the side here, and this is outside of our stage area, so anything that's up here won't show up in the animation. And let's make Kirby, I don't know, hop, and then maybe suck something up. So I'm going to lock him for now. I'm going to add another layer, and then I'm going to put... I'll just do like a little... like a nut or something to him for him to suck up. So... maybe like an acorn. Yeah, how about an acorn? So I'm just doing this from memory. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make it more detailed if you want, but... anyways, there's a little acorn. And then I'm going to color it in. Maybe like that. If it doesn't color in, just make sure you click on the layer again. That's still not working. Okay, I closed large gaps. I forgot that I went back to don't close gaps, so that's why I wasn't filling in. So... yeah, this program can be very, like, testy when it comes to filling things in, so even though it looks like it's, like, all solid lines, there's no openings, if you go to don't close gaps, it'll, like, find a gap anyways. It's pretty obnoxious, but it's one of my only complaints with this program, to be honest. It kind of sucks at coloring, but you'll get the hang of it. So I don't want to make it too crazy, but maybe put a little bit of, like, shading on it. And yeah, you'll find yourself using the, this is called the eyedropper tool if you're familiar with like paint or anything like that. It just duplicates the same color you're on. It's really like handy for doing shading because you can just do like a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. So I'll do one side lighter. Maybe do like one side a little bit darker here. I don't want it to look too much like the top though, so it might look funny. Oh, that looks fine. Okay. Anyways, there's our acorn, so I'm going to select that. You can also do that. You can either drag and do it. You can select the whole frame. These are the frames right here. I'll get to that soon. Anyway, so I'm gonna put the acorn down here on the ground. It'll be just like laying there. There we go. Okay, so we got Kirby right here. I'm gonna call this other layer acorn because I forgot. Okay, and now we're gonna add another layer and put it right above the Kirby layer. And I'm going to zoom in to like 120 just so I can see him even better, maybe even more, 200 maybe. Okay, so now we'll do this one with the paintbrush tool. Okay, we'll go ahead and draw Kirby now. And I'm going to draw him from more of like a side view. Which, if you can just follow along if you're not great at drawing yet, but you should probably practice drawing if you're gonna learn animation. So, but this shouldn't be too hard. Just kind of visualize it, how he'd be if he was turned a little bit. You can also maybe find a 3D model of him online and then rotate it and kind of draw him from there. If I have trouble drawing something in perspective, I'll do that a lot. So. Little eyes. It's okay if it's not perfect. We're just kind of learning right now, so... Little eyes here. Give him a little mouth. Yeah, I'm Kirby. And then we'll give him his little arm nubs. And then I'm just pressing Control Z if I don't like the way something looks to delete it. His little feet. His shoes look like they're kind of shaped weird. They're almost like more like that. Once again, it's fine if it's not perfect. Actually, you know what? I just want him standing kind of in like a standard pose. Standard standing. Anyways, so I'm gonna do this, and notice I'm like, oh, I don't like the way that arm looks. Like, I like the way I drew it, but I don't like the position it's in, so I'm gonna put it more like that. Here we go. Back to the paintbrush tool. We'll have him just starting out in like a very standard standing pose here. Here we go. And then it bothers me when I see little things like that where it's like overlapping, so I'm just gonna erase a tiny bit in there to get rid of that overlap. There we go. So I want them to be the same colors as this, so what I can do is I can unlock the Kirby layer, and then it should let me use the paint dropper tool and actually click in this. You can actually steal the color from the actual reference if you have one. So there's that. Make his shoes the same. Maybe put blue down here, black up here for his eyes, and then I'll just stick for one solid color for his mouth for the purposes of this animation. Oh, I need to do his little cheeks. So I don't want those to have a black outline, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the oval tool. Those look like ovals to me. I'm going to click the paint dropper and then click his cheek. And then I'm going to make a little cheek right here. A little cheek right there. That kind of looks good with the outline, but if you don't want that, you can click the outline and then press the delete key. And it'll get rid of the outlines. And notice it kind of cut into the side of his face a little bit, so I'm going to fix that by just going back to my paintbrush tool and drawing over a little bit. There we go. And then just to make him look a little bit nicer, like I said earlier, I'm going to give him some shading, so I use the paint dropper tool, selected him, scroll up a little bit, and then I'll just put like a little shine on his head. I think that would look cute. Okay, there we go. There's Kirby. He looks like a little gumball. So I'm going to select Kirby. I'll just select the whole frame. I guess I'm in the habit of selecting him like this, but you can do it just like this too. It's probably actually quicker. So I'm going to drag him down. And I forgot to color his eyes white, so I'll do that in a second. But I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to expand him. I want him quite a bit bigger than the acorn. You know, for this animation, instead of making him jump or whatever I said earlier, I'll just have him, like, suck it in, so. Color his eyes white. This eye looks kind of misshapen, so I'm going to fix that real quick. It's going to bother me. I know I'm probably moving too fast here. Feel free to slow this down if you need to. I've been doing this for many years, so. There we go. This one looks a little weird too. Okay, so there's Kirby standing there. Oh, did I put him on a... Looks like I put him on a different layer by accident. Oh no, that's because I called this one Kirby, that's right. So I'm going to go ahead and... Well, I guess I'll keep the reference up there, so I'm going to lock that again. I'll call this, I'll just call this curb image, and I'll call our actual Kirby, we're going to use Kirby now. We got our acorn here, I'm going to lock that for now. Okay, So what I want to do is I want to animate Kirby sucking in this acorn. So just to kind of make the scene start out fluidly, I'm going to press on Kirby. I'm going to press F6 a few times. So we're at 24 frames per second. I actually started animating at 12, so if you want to do 12, that works too. It just looks choppier, but I press F6 a few times to create some keyframes, and that should like be just a quarter of a second. I'm going to do a few more to kind of start it out. It's always good to do like just a few frames still when you first start like a new scene, just so the viewer can kind of, you know, understand what's happening. You don't want it to like lag, so don't do too many, but it's good to just do a few to kind of like set the standard of what the scene's gonna look like. Excuse me. Okay, so there's multiple ways to do this, but I'm gonna tackle this one more a little bit like a flip book, just because our character's really simple. And then I'll also show you how to do it if you're gonna do the character with layers. So I'm gonna delete Kirby by doing cut frames, and this is called an onion skin. It shows the previous frame, almost like a ghost image of it, so you can select this and show the very last frame, and it'll show what it looked like before. And it's really handy, almost like you're doing a flip book and like flipping back to the last page for reference. So now I can see what the frame previous looked like. And so I'm going to circle them again. And circles are interesting because they just stay circles, like no matter how they move pretty much, so it's pretty easy. So I'll just circle him again. And I want him to like kind of look down at the acorn before he sucks it in, so I'm going to draw his eyes just slightly more below that. And what I'm doing right now, these are called in-betweens. Because it's kind of like drawing the in-between of, you know, the animation. So we're gonna, you know, start Kirby out on kind of like a solidified pose, and then the pose he ends up in, which will be the sucking pose, will be kind of like the ending pose, and everything in between is called an in-between. And that's in professional animation, a lot of times they'll have people doing the in-betweens and then people doing like the more standard poses. It's kind of interesting, but I'm getting off topic a little bit. So I'm going to expand his eyes a little bit to make them more the size that they were. And then move his mouth down a little bit. And then I kind of am visualizing almost like raising his hands upwards to suck in the acorn. So I'll just have his feet move a little bit too. Almost like he's like gearing for action. And then I'll put this arm right here. This arm just a little bit up from the last one. That's probably a little bit too much. There we go. And then I'll color everything in after I kind of do the animation. I'll probably do the cheeks last too. So like you goes from there to there. And I don't want him to move too quickly, so I'm gonna do 2 frames right here because that'll be more like 12 frames per second. There's certain things that'll be really easy to do at 24 frames, but for the sake of this, since it's like more complex animation with like a character, I'll do double the frames, so that equates to 12 frames per second. Hopefully that's making sense. I'm going to polish up his eye just here a little bit by erasing this little thing right here. So there's 1 frame. I pressed F6 twice to do that kind of at 12 frames per second, like I said. I'm going to cut this frame, turn my onion skin back on, and then do another drawing. So here's where you can do a little bit of a shortcut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to... Well, first I'm going to trace the circle again, because that's really easy. It's a little misshapen, so I'm going to polish this part up just a little bit. And when you go to the eraser tool, you can go down to this eraser shape kind of section right here, and then change the shape of your eraser to be bigger or small, and that's really helpful for how big of an area you're trying to erase. I'm kind of assuming that a lot of people that want to do this, they've probably drawn in programs like Procreate or Paint at some point. So that's not perfect, but for the sake of the video, I'll just leave it. So there's the circle, so I'm going to turn the onion skin off, go back to the last frame, and then I'm going to use the lasso tool, which you can actually very, very specifically select what you want to select exactly. And I'm just going to do everything inside of the circle, and I'm going to go copy, go to the next frame, and I go edit, paste in place. And then now I'm going to move that down again, so it's kind of cheating. But they use this a lot in modern animation to save time. So I'm going to move that all down, so he's kind of looking more at the acorn. And I'm going to select this arm by just using the free transform tool. I almost forgot what it was called. Drag the arm up. And then I'm going to actually draw this other arm. See what that looks like. And I'm going to put this leg a little bit further back. Kind of want to add like a little bend to his foot. So it looks like he's kind of posing here. And then I'm going to zoom in a lot because I want his pupils to be down a little bit more. So this is going to be a little bit tricky, but his pupils, and without redrawing them completely, I'm going to move them down a bit. And then I'm just going to fill in the gaps with the brush tool that kind of got messed up when I moved it, when I moved the pupils. Polish it up a little bit. Turn the onion skin off, and then do 2 more frames. See what that looks like so far. Cool, so he's looking at it. Okay, and then before I do the color, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the top part of his eyes. He looks almost angry when I do that, but become black. And then you can copy this frame, and since we're doing double frames, there's going to be an extra one that looks the same. But if you want the previous frame to look exactly the same like I do, you can copy this frame and then paste it over the previous frame like that. So like I said, we're doing 2 frames per movement here, just because it's a little bit more of a complex scene. So I accidentally did 3, so I actually highlighted all of these. I'm going to go to right-click, remove frames. Paste over that. The same thing. This is just so his eyes are consistently the same color. Did I do 3 for each one? No, that's right. Just while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and eyedropper tool the blue color right here. And then fill in the rest of his eyes. See, since we have close large gaps turned on, it's closing this part, but it's not closing like the little part because it's like a small gap. So if it starts to annoy you too much, you can go like somewhere in the middle. I usually just keep large gaps turned all the way on and deal with it because it causes even more problems. But if it's really not wanting to fill something in, you can like mess with it a little bit. But... and I could be copying and pasting these. I should probably actually wait until I'm done doing the coloring, but oh well. So paste that over this. Okay. And now I'm going to make Kirby kind of do like a sucking motion. So I know I want his mouth to expand. I don't want his eyes to get in the way, so I'm actually going to lasso his mouth and delete it for now. Move his eyes upwards, because his eyes are going to stay in place. And then I'm going to do 2 frames, so I did F6 twice to create 2 frames. I'm going to move his eyes up one more time, just a little bit, do 2 frames. And then I'm going to create a layer and call it mouth. And you could just redraw it on the same Kirby layer, almost like a flipbook, but I know I want his mouth to like slowly kind of expand. So I'm going to use its own layer for that, so I don't have to keep drawing it on the same layer as Kirby. It'll just make things easier. So I'm going to lock the Kirby layer. And then this is when his mouth disappears, so I'm going to create a... I'm going to click and drag and delete everything right after his mouth appears, because there's nothing there yet. So I'm going to press F6 to create a blank keyframe, if you see right here. It looks like these, but it's blank, that it shows no drawings are in it yet. And make his mouth a little bit bigger. Press F6 twice. Make his mouth a little bit bigger. Again, I guess I could just free transform it to make it bigger this time. Okay, we're going to take a break from that for a second and just kind of, you know, color Kirby in for the rest of the frame. So the program also does this weird thing. I think it's like some, I don't know if it's like a glitch, but like let's say your workspace or like the part that's not in your animation, like right here, it's like cutting off your drawing. That'll like make it not want to fill in for some reason. So just change the zoom, just zoom out a little bit, and it should fill it in afterwards. Oh, you know what? Actually, it was only doing that because I had it locked. Sorry. Anyways, well, we're gonna go ahead and color in our character now. Wrong color. Whoops. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and color in our character now for the other shots, just to kind of get it out of the way. So, if you want to essentially do what I'm doing right now, where you're just going to the next frame without having to manually like click and drag up here, you can press the period key on your keyboard. So I'm going to skip every other frame because I can copy and paste over it, since it's like double frames, if that makes sense. Since this is supposed to be exactly the same drawing, see how it's the same drawing here, I can just copy and paste the colors onto that frame once I'm done. So I'm going to wait a second to do that. Let's see. I guess sometimes it's easier to just do it. Okay, get his cheeks in there. And I'll go ahead and just draw him without using the oval tool this time. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this to the next frame because it's supposed to look exactly the same. Like I said, we're doing double frames so it doesn't go too quickly. I want his highlight to look the same, so I'm using the eyedropper tool. This highlight there again. Color his mouth in. Color the whites of his eyes. There we go. Coloring is done for that frame. So I'm going to copy and paste that to the next frame also, because it's the same image. And then... see, right here I actually forgot to add the highlight, but I want it to look the same without making the eyes... without making the eyes go back to the position that they were in. So I'm going to take the lasso... and then lasso the highlight area only and go to edit copy, go to the frame that I want it on and go to edit paste, and now it's there. Sometimes it acts a little funky when you do it, so I'll just try to kind of match that to what the frame was previously. There we go, I actually did that almost perfectly. Okay, so is that there? Actually, I could do it with just the highlight. So copy, paste the highlight. And sometimes there's more than one way to do something. This is just how I learned, and depending on what I'm doing as far as my workflow goes, sometimes I'll tackle a problem different ways. Like, these are really simple characters, so I could copy and paste all these, but I'm just gonna fill them in because it's almost quicker. So yeah, it's getting mad at me, and it's filling in the see, it's filling in the Kirby layer instead. So I'm gonna lock that layer for a second, and then I just want it to fill in the mouth. So do that. I'm pressing period to go a frame more. Period, period, click, period, click. There we go. And then the whites of his eyes. I need to do his cheeks also. Man, I forgot the highlight and I forgot his cheeks. So, copy paste that. That's probably good enough. Okay. So I'm going to click down one cheek. I'm going to hold shift and click down the other so it selects both. Edit, copy. Edit, paste. Edit, paste. And I guess I could move his cheeks a little bit with his mouth. There's a gap right here, so I'm going to fill that in after I did that. This cheek looked a little funny, so I'm just going to redraw it. Paste that. Paste that. Okay, I'm going to add another frame, and I'm going to delete his mouth. And I think I decided I want his mouth to kind of turn into like a circle, so when he's like kind of sucking in. So I'm going to draw kind of like a halfway in between this shape and a circle. So I don't want it to change too rapidly. We just kind of like round out the mouth there. That's a little small. Yeah, if you just went from this shape right to a circle, it'd probably look a little funny. So 2 frames there. I'm going to cut that. And now I'm going to show you guys something that's called a motion tween. So I just made a new layer, pressed F6. You could do it on the same mouth layer, but I like doing my motion tweens on different layers depending on like what I'm doing, but don't stress too much about it. So I went to this oval tool right here, and I want the line to be a little thicker, so I'm going to go up to stroke right here and type in 4 instead of 3. So I made his mouth bigger, and once again you can press Control and click these little points right here to kind of warp it. Warp the shape you created. So let's see what that looks like. I want the circle to still be a little bit thicker, so I'm going to go 5 instead of 4. Usually thin looks a little better, but everything's already kind of thick, so might as well just keep it consistent. Okay, now I'm going to go to Create, right-click, and press Create Motion Tween. And that's going to do kind of the animation for you. Not anything super complex, it's just going to kind of warp the shape. So I'm going to go to frame 50, scroll all the way down. So I clicked, scrolled all the way down, and then I press F6. That's going to expand the timeline all the way to here. So far you see right here, we're at about 2 seconds of animation at 24 frames per second. So let's see. 1, 2. And then I want his mouth to expand, so I'm going to click the very first frame of the motion tween. Actually, I'm going to click the very last frame. Expand his mouth, so click on the one of the corners here, and you can drag it outwards like this. Oh man, we're going to have to shrink the acorn to get it to fit in there, probably a little bit, but... So there we go, that looks funny.
I didn't expect the inside of the mines to be like this.
Oh, he's ready to eat that acorn. And I think it'd be cute too if he had kind of like a cheek expanding. So I'm going to create another layer. Remove these frames. Because I want his cheek to start expanding right when his mouth does. So I go at the start of that tween right there. And press F6 to create a keyframe. And I want his cheek to look like this. I'm going to do it outside of here. Because the pink's going to be confusing doing pink over pink, so... Close in that little area. See what that looks like. Maybe I'll keep it, maybe I won't. Let's see if it looks good. And be careful, since this layer is above the mouth layer, if you put it too far to the side, it'll overlap his eyes and everything. So I'm trying to do it right here. Do it a little smaller so we have more room to expand it. I'm going to create another tween. So I went to right click on this, create motion tween, it'll turn blue. Expand that to right when his mouth ends. Drag that to where it's not covering his mouth. I'm going to expand it a little bit. This might not be perfect. You can mess with this if you want to. So I don't like how it erases his cheek right here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to right when it covers his cheek, press F6 on the layer that you know, the pink dot cheek thing is on, because we want the blow up cheek to have that on it now. So I'm going to delete that, and you have to do it right here on the timeline, right when he starts the sucking in animation thing. And get rid of that. I made frames right here too, so it's going to show up again. And I know that this is a lot to take in, so don't get too overwhelmed. Just really experiment, and if you can't figure something out, just try until you get it. Eventually it'll become muscle memory, you'll be able to just do it. But it's good to have tutorials like this to just kind of help. I might not be the best teacher, but I'm trying. Okay, so I'm going to double click on this cheek that's blowing up there. So what that does is, since it's a motion tween, this isn't its own little, like, almost like movie clip. So anything I put on here is going to follow the animation of, like, what the cheek's doing. So click outside of it. Once again, I can double click it. It's in its own little movie clip. It's a little bit hard to explain, but you'll see. So, sorry, dog barking. Double click his cheek again. I'm gonna put that little, you know, pink circle in there instead. Those rosy red little curvy cheeks. And I also don't like how his cheek, like, kind of rapidly appears, like his kind of like balloon cheek segment. So I'm going to go one frame before that and press F6 to create a new keyframe. And I went and changed this to black, but it accidentally changed the whole character, so I just pressed Control Z. So I'm going to add just a little bit of a line there to kind of, like, implicate that that's about to blow up. That's still pretty rapid. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. And maybe I'll do, like, one frame before that also. So go back one more frame, press F6, tiny bit, so there we go. So, or there we go. So it kind of, like, cues the viewer into his cheek expanding there before it gets to be giant. So I'd really like that to be happening on this side too, so let's see if I can copy and paste this. So I'm going to right click and copy this balloon cheek. I'm just going to call it balloon cheek to differentiate it from the rosy red cheek part. And then paste it on a frame above that. And it's going to be overlapping it, but it's going to be exactly the same thing, but on another layer. So I'm going to drag this over here. Kind of see how I did that here, so it's like stacked. And then I'm going to use the transform tool, and I'm going to turn this around completely. And then I'm going to line it up with the other side of his face here. This is trickier than it should be. And then once again, this other cheek's going to get kind of show in the background too much, so I'm going to get rid of that also. So I'm going to make a keyframe at the very end of when his mouth expands all the way. Drag this out. Yeah, that still doesn't look quite right. So I'm going to put this layer, I'm going to put this underneath Kirby. Let's do some troubleshooting here together. I'm going to put it underneath the Kirby layer here and see if that'll look okay. It still looks funny, so let's see. Oh, there we go. Putting it underneath the mouth layer actually works. So there's some troubleshooting. It doesn't look perfect, but it's good enough for this. And then I'm also going to implicate that this part's going to expand too. So I'm going to go one frame before his cheek blows up. Erase this just a little bit. I think I meant to say imply. So it's bothering me how this cheek isn't going all the way to here. So I'm going to kind of just fake it a little bit, and I'm going to, right when his cheeks blow up, I'm going to add a new layer above this. Make a keyframe, and I'm going to select the pink. I'm going to go in and kind of just manually fix that. So watch this. So take a frame, take a frame, take a frame. It's going to start looking weird, so I'm going to delete it. Actually, not quite yet. Actually looks pretty good still, but yeah, a little bit of black starting to show up. So all I did was draw a little pink dot above this just so his cheeks look right. Because his head was kind of interfering with the cheeks, and they were kind of like overlapping in like a weird way, so... I don't know why that keeps happening. It keeps going to the beginning. I think I clicked something weird. Okay, that's not perfect, but looks better than it did. So now we're actually almost done. So I'm going to make another layer, and you don't have to name all of them if you're good at kind of keeping track. I'm going to call this one section. I'm going to do like a little animation to make it look like his the air's kind of going into him here. So kind of just make, I'm going to go to the pencil tool, go to stroke, and then I'm going to click on 2, so it's just little tiny lines that kind of like imply that there's air going in, kind of like in cartoons. That's what this is. I'm going to do it every 2 frames, kind of like I did before, so it's 12 frames per second essentially. But his mouth is actually moving at 24 frames per second, so it's on a tween, and it's kind of going the whole time, so it's kind of nice to incorporate some smoothness there too. Just kind of like imply that it's going to start again. 2. And then I want that to just kind of loop, so I'm just gonna kind of copy it where it started, and I'm gonna copy all those and paste. So now you see that I pasted it so much that it's going like after all the rest of the animation, so it's only going to show the little like marks I made for the air section. So watch. So in order to fix that, I'm going to drag this all the way to the end, click down, go all the way to the bottom, hold shift, click at the bottom, and then press F6. So it expands the whole animation to that part of the timeline. It's still bothering me how his cheek down here isn't connecting with his head. Let's see if there's a way to fix that. Kind of warping this. So I think I'm going to do that manually, which is going to be a pain, but here we go. So I just created a new layer. And it's just starting to bother me around right here. So I'm going to press F6 on the timeline, scroll, delete, F6. I'm going to add like a little line. And I'm doing that below the cheek by accident. I want it to be above the cheek.
Ghost.
So F6. And you can also move this very, very little by little by just pressing the arrow keys. You see I'm moving that little fill-in line just a little by little. Sometimes I'm going to redraw it just so it doesn't look too static here. So if I was more careful, it probably would have looked better from the beginning, but making this a little bit more intricate than I meant to. So like I said, this is me just kind of patching it up here, making it look nicer. Almost done. Still gotta do the acorn going into his mouth, so let's see what that looks like. So not bad. This part's still a little disconnected, but whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna go scroll out to 100. And this is gonna be really easy, so I'm gonna grab the acorn. Actually, it's locked, so let me unlock that layer. Which one is it? I think it's locked. Where is it? Am I tripping? Acorn. Yeah, it is locked. It's up here. I forgot. Okay. So just a few frames before the animation ends, I'm going to remove the frames of the acorn right before I want it to start animating. Press F6 to create a keyframe. And then I'm going to make a... Well, you know what? Let's just do this manually. So I'll show you how to do it frame by frame. So make the acorn barely start kind of hinting that it's going to go into his mouth. Press F6. Make a keyframe. F6 for a keyframe. Just little by little here. And I'm going to shrink it a tiny bit at a time while it's going into his mouth. We're going to kind of fake it here because it's bigger than his mouth, so you'll see. You guys kind of see what I'm doing, so I'm just kind of just little by little, F6, F6. I think I'll keep it that size, so. So you probably noticed that the acorn obviously doesn't look like it's going into his mouth at the end there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to manually erase all the parts of the acorn that look like it's going outside of his mouth at the end of the animation there. So I don't want to impact anything else I already drew, so I'm going to lock everything but the acorn pretty much. I'll actually just go up here. If you press the lock or unlock all layers up here, it's by the little eyeball. And that'll actually make it to where layers are hidden also if you click the eyeball, so that might be helpful too. So I'm going to lock all of them, and then find my acorn layer, and then just unlock only that one. And then I'm just going to take the eraser tool and frame by frame I'm going to delete around his mouth, and then it should create the illusion that it's going into his mouth. That one I kind of dragged a little bit too far, so I want at least one more frame to where it really looks like it's going in there, so I dragged it a little bit closer to his mouth. So and I added a bunch more frames just so the animation ends. So let's see what that looks like if I go to Test, Movie, Test in Flash Professional. That'll show us our whole animation. Very nice. And I noticed that I want the air to stop at the end, the air that's going into his mouth. So right when it stops animating, I'm just going to get rid of it. I have to, and I'm clicking right below the eyeball right here to kind of hide the layers so I can see which one I'm trying to get rid of, which is that one. If you see it's disappearing, the little air marks there. So unlock, I'm going to unlock that, click on one of those, and then delete everything to that point, or after that point. And I'm going to press F6 to create a frame, and then cut frames, and then press F6 to the end, so it's just a blank, one big, long, blank slate till the very end. Hopefully that makes sense. I know this is really confusing. I'm not the best teacher ever, but hopefully you guys are getting something out of this. So let's have Kirby also return to his default pose, and that'll be the very last thing we do. So I'm going to unlock everything. And we'll start from right here, and I'm going to select every single frame, actually except for the black outline, just because it's always there, it's not necessary, so. And we'll do the acorn also, and we can just delete it at the end, even it'll show up. So, click right when Kirby's mouth, right before it turns into like a full circle, I'll do that. So, you'll see what I'm saying if you just follow along. So, our goal is to just make Kirby look, go back to the pose he was in. So I'm going to shift, click all the way down, copy frames. And then the black outline's not going to be there at the end, and we'll fix that after, so don't worry. It's funny to see what we drew inside of the black outline here. So I want each of these to be 2 frames, so I just did 2. And we'll just do this pose because it's kind of going back to his default pose in reverse. Copy those. Paste all these right here. And then back to his default pose. And then it actually should be in a perfect loop after this too, except for the acorn disappearing. So if you see what I did here, since the black outline isn't showing up because I copy and paste everything but the black outline, I just went ahead and clicked to the very end of the black outline and pressed F6 to like make it go across the entire timeline. Oh, it looks like the sky changed color. Oh wait, no, let's see. I think it's just because it's highlighted. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to press F6 just a few more times just so it doesn't loop so rapidly. Okay, now let's see what the animation looks like. Very nice. So what you can do from here, and I'll just explain this instead of showing because it's pretty easy. Go to Test Movie, go to in Flash Professional, just kind of like I just did, and this will create a file called an SWF. And what you're going to want to do is download a program called Swivel. Once your animation's done, you open the program called Swivel. Actually, you know what? Maybe I will show you real quick. So just download this program called Swivel. I had a friend named Robert that showed me this a long time ago. So shout out to him. Sorry if that was loud. So I'm going to go to Add. So double click your SWF file. I put it in a weird folder by accident, so ignore that. Go to Video, and then go to Video Bitrate, turn that all the way up so it's lossless so your animation looks good still. Go to Audio, and I like doing no audio because I like putting the audio in an external program. So this is going to make it into a video file so you can, edit it in like an external, program. So I use Sony Vegas, but you might use something else. But then you go to Convert. And then now it's an MP4 and you can edit it in a different program and it should be really high quality because I actually forgot to show you guys that on video I went 1920 by 1080, so it should be HD and 1080p. Anyways, thanks for watching. That's it, and hopefully I explained that decent enough. I know it's kind of confusing and I like to ramble and I'm not the best at explaining everything. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. So I've had a few people over the years ask me how I animate in Flash and how I do my animations, so just thought I'd show you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.